Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, good to see you. I see some familiar faces out there, so it's wonderful to see you back again. Welcome back. This is our second Strikeout, the Stigma program for the season. So welcome, and I hope that we get to see more of you at our future Strikeout the Stigma programs. So thank you very much. The focus of Strikeout the Stigma is to bring important conversations to the forefront about the value of healthy life habits, supporting those around us, and removing the negative connotations surrounding mental health. The topic of conversation tonight is Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May. So thank you. Tonight we'll be recording this and distributing tonight's panel for fans to view across the tri-state area via Phillies.com and Phillies podcasts. We thank those of you who are here with us today, as a portion of each ticket is purchased for the Strikeout the Stigma event will be donated back to tonight's charity, Minding Your Mind, back there. We're lucky to have an incredible panel to speak to us, so let's meet them. So first off, I'd like to introduce my co-host this evening, Antonio Cordero. He is the mental health counselor for the Philadelphia Phillies. Antonio, it's great to have you here. You're coming right off of a road trip, so I know that the plane came in pretty late. So we're pretty impressed that you're here today, and you're looking pretty sprightly, so that's great.
Thank you, Dina.
So can you tell us a little bit about coming here to the Philadelphia Phillies in your role?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a mental health therapist, licensed mental health therapist. I work for the CAPS department, which is our counseling department. We provide services for our players, coaches, and we essentially provide services for essentially all of our teams, all the way from, let's say, the DR, all the way to our major league team. In terms of my background, I come from a background of counseling psychology and also sports psychology. And like you said, things are pretty entertaining, busy, but it's a great thing to be here. Thank you.
And you also have a coaching background too.
That's correct. Yes, I do. Yes. So I'm a former college athlete myself. Played soccer, and thought I'd be pursuing that for a bit up until I got a little bit more into psychology. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful that you have that background, because I think that certainly helps you with making connection with our athletic community as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks, Antonio. So the next three members of our panel are also from our Phillies family. Please welcome pitcher for the Jersey Shore Blue Claws, Ethan Chenald. Ethan, thanks for joining us tonight. Can you share with our guests about your journey that led you to the Phillies organization?
Yeah, so like Nina said, my name is Ethan Chenald. I am from Forest, Virginia, and I spent 3 years at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and then was lucky enough to get drafted in the 18th round by the Phillies, and now we're here. So, yeah.
Thank you. And you were here, this is not your first time at Citizens Bank Park, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so before the draft, I was able to get invited to come here and do a pre-draft workout. Kind of get in front of the front office and be able to compete against some other college guys hoping to get drafted. And so, I was able to come out here and get to pitch on the mound and get to pitch in the stadium, which was very cool. And so, I was lucky enough to do that and get to compete there. And then, turned out the Phillies picked me up and it worked out good.
Thank you so much, Ethan. Next, from Jersey Shore Blue Claws, please welcome pitcher Casey Stewart. Case, thanks for joining us here today. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to come here to the Phillies organization?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like she said, I'm Casey. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. I went to a school in Topeka, Kansas, Washburn University. Went there for 4 years. And like Ethan said, was lucky enough to get picked up by the Phillies in the 19th round of 2023. And it's been a blessing ever since. And thankful for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And finally, we have, last but not least, another member of our Jersey Shore Blue Claws family. Please welcome Blue Claws manager, Greg Brezzinski. Thank you so much, Greg, for coming. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to come to the Phillies and the various roles you've played here at the Phillies?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me as well. I have the pleasure of managing these two guys, two pitchers on our team, and This is actually my 11th season with the Phillies. I grew up about 30 minutes from here in South Jersey, so it's pretty cool. I got drafted in 2015 out of a Division II school in Florida, and I spent 2 years-ish playing, and then they asked me if I had any interest in getting into the coaching side of things, and I didn't think it would come that soon, but I think, now being on this side, I realized it was a great decision and that I wanted to coach at some point, and having an opportunity to do that in pro ball was something that I wanted to take advantage of, and one of the best decisions I ever made, especially being a hometown kid with the Phillies growing up as my favorite team and getting to continue my career with them. And since I did that, I've spent, the first year I was in AAA. Back then, they only had a hitting coach, a pitching coach, and a manager at each spot. And now there's about 10 staff members on each staff, which is great for the players' sake. But so essentially, I was like the first defensive coach, extra coach that they had in the organization. I got to start in Lehigh Valley with our AAA club, doing various roles, working with the catchers, assisting the manager. I started coaching some third base, and then I spent 2 years in Reading with our AA club with a little bit more responsibility. I got to work with some outfielders, do catching, more coaching third base, and essentially became more of like a bench coach for the manager. And then 1 year in Williamsport, which we don't have as a club anymore, but back then they were our short season affiliate, where guys right out of the draft would go and finish up that first year. And then I got an opportunity to interview for a job on our major league staff when Joe Girardi came in as the manager, and I got hired on his staff in 2020 as one of the catching coaches and bullpen catchers for a couple years. And one thing I think we do really well as an organization is we obviously develop players, but we develop staff members really, really well, and they know my goal is hopefully to be a major league manager one day, and to do that you have to get some experience. So after 2021, I got to go back to the minor leagues. I was the bench coach in AAA and coached third base every day for that season, and then spent the last 3 years now managing our Jersey Shore club, which is high A, and it's been a blast. There's so much I learned over that time about being a manager that I've been able to implement in that role, and then you learn something new, every day, every year, and I think I had an expectation of what managing would be like, but it's been even better. So it's been a fun journey to this point, and it's been really fun so far.
Yeah, that's a lot of years and a lot of experience. When I was over at AAA just last week, I saw your picture there in the hallway. So yes. Yeah,
it's baseball is interesting because it's almost like time's not real and how fast things go when you talk about seasons, but you look back and it was about 8 years ago now that I was there the first time, and it's been a really fun journey. It's been special.
Well, you look just the same, so
that's a good thing.
So, Greg, this first question is for you. Mm-hmm. As a coach, how do you integrate mental health and well-being into your coaching?
That's good. So I have my phone out. I took some notes, so I'm not just looking at my phone. But the biggest thing for me, especially once you kind of slide into that manager role, is taking the time to get to know your players and your staff, and getting to know the individuals outside of the game of baseball, because it's really easy to view the guys that we have as strictly baseball players, but that's really not the case, right? These are human beings just like anybody else that go through the daily grinds and struggles that anybody else would. And obviously, from an outside perspective, what we get to do is really glamorous and cool and fun, but that doesn't mean these guys, and even staff-wise, doesn't go through the same thing. Everybody has families, and that's my kid that's been screaming the whole time. So he's great, but I think it's just really getting to understand where my guys came from, whether it's staff or players, kind of the background on how they got to the point wherever I'm at coaching, and understanding how they are as human beings and what they have going on in their life, and understanding how I can be there for them as the manager. I know it's my job every day when I wake up to be there for the staff and for the players, to make their jobs as easy as possible, and to facilitate a day around obviously our baseball schedule, but then making sure I'm as available as possible for them to come find me whenever something comes up. And in these last 3 years managing, there's been different things here and there with we had a player lose his father unexpectedly, and guys will kind of show up at your hotel room different times of night, but the biggest thing is making sure that they know you're available to be there for them outside of the realm of baseball, because it's easy to get really locked into the daily grind of just doing that, but understanding and keeping an open door for those guys to come find you. So, and then reminding them that we're there for them and that they have the resources that we do as an organization with you too. And I think we do a good job as an organization of giving these guys everything we can to succeed. But then when it comes to, referring them to Dina or Antonio, that's really important, because it's not always easy to talk about this stuff. But when you have a department that's available and a resource for these guys to use, that, and they need to know about it. So my job is just making sure that they know, and then giving you guys the floor when you're in town and I know you'll touch on that, to be around these guys and be available and be there to help, because they're always going through something, but you guys do a great job in your department.
Well, you do a great job too,
Thanks.
Greg. And I know that, here I'm hearing you talk about social connection, which is important for well-being, knowing what's going on, the whole person, not just sort of seeing them just as sort of a player.
Yeah.
And I think that care and concern, is something that, I'll brag for you a bit, but yeah, you were recognized too for your leadership as a manager, and I think that shows in your players. So thank you for all you do for the players.
Yeah, no problem. I think too is the game's hard, right? You learn a lot about life through the game of baseball, and staying as positive as possible and keeping it like a positive environment, because the season's long, like it's May, but these guys will be playing baseball all the way through September. So not getting too high, not getting too low, and you can just continue to remind them of the positivity of, the little things that they're doing, and that it's a process. So I think the positivity is huge, because it's hard what they're doing every day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Antonio, I'll sort of hand it off to you to ask some questions now.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Dina. So, Ethan, starting with you, can you describe the ways in which you prepare yourself mentally, whether for big situations or just in general?
Yeah, so I'm a reliever. So a lot of the situations that I get to throw in or be in or whatever can be big situations where the game can swing one way or another, right? So, and it is, in practice, it's hard to replicate those game reps outside of the game. Playing catch and throwing on the mound, throwing bullpens it's not the same as, runners on. If the guy on third base scores, the game's over. It's not the same. But when it comes to the mental side of it, knowing that not only that you're good enough to do that and that you can take on that every single day, and having that confidence in doing it is what can drive you through those tight situations. And knowing that you're there for a reason. Like, you're not there, they didn't just throw you in there just because. You're there for a reason, because not only should you have faith in yourself, but your teammates and your coaches and the organization as a whole, they have faith in you also. And so knowing that as a whole helps me feel prepared and in a way to go out and compete the way that I should be able to compete. And it's like taking a test in school. If you're prepared, you feel great going into it. If you're not prepared, you're a little nervous going into it, So having that faith in yourself, having that confidence in yourself, and that helps you become prepared in order to take on these situations and attack these situations fully, whether they go your way or not. The results beforehand, the results don't matter, because you don't know the results. You don't know what's going to happen. But knowing that you're good enough and having that confidence in order to do that is more than half the battle of just going in there and giving it everything you have, So.
Yeah, absolutely. Trusting your preparation, like you're saying, right? Having faith in yourself. That's a huge component, right? As difficult as it may be to replicate it, right? That's certainly rings true. Now, Casey, shifting over to you, you and Ethan are both pitchers. How do you think preparing yourself mentally as a pitcher may differ from that of a hitter?
I haven't hit in a long time, so I can't speak on behalf of hitters, but seeing as their preparation and our preparation, it is a little bit different. As pitchers, we kind of get to talk with the pitching coach, the catchers, and what they see, what they feel, or what they hear from the coaches that they work with. We can kind of have a game plan of what this guy likes, what this guy doesn't like, and kind of can pitch around that. Whereas hitters kind of just get a sheet of paper. They say, this is what he throws. this is kind of the zone he throws it in, and then they go to the cages and can kind of get a sim of what that pitcher does. But for pitchers, it's just different. You kind of got to go out there and kind of feel the game out, feel the hitter, because hitters can be streaky as pitchers can, but just knowing that, like, you got to trust in your stuff and trust in the catcher pretty much, and just believing in what you got.
Yeah, great point about the catching, in terms of that relationship, that collaboration, right? That's a huge component, right? Good. Thank you for that, Casey. Ethan, going back to you, what message do you have for young athletes out there who may be experiencing issues with their mental health due to on-field performance or failures?
I really think at the end of the day, like, especially when you're young, you shouldn't take for granted what the game is giving you, So, like, now for us, the game is a job, and, the results may shake whether you have a job or not at the end of the day. If you don't put up the results, you may not have a job, So when you're younger, I think you should really focus on enjoying the game that you're playing. And I mean, I struggle with this to this day, and not reading into the results and not letting the results be who you are as a person. Try to be the same guy every day, same girl every day, no matter the results, whether it's in life or in baseball. And I think as a young athlete, especially in sports, enjoy what you get to go out there every single day and you get to play a sport. You have that opportunity. And I think that you should be able to take in every aspect of it and love the game that you play. And, the results may not be there that day, but at the end of the day, you have the opportunity to play a sport that you love and be around a great group of people most of the time, and make friends that last you a lifetime. So my best friends that I have in life are all teammates that I've played with, been around from high school to now. So when you're a young athlete, enjoy it, love it, and embrace the grind of it. And if it's something that you love, then maybe take it into life, whether it's college, professional, whatever, but just love on the sport, and try not to let the results become who you are. The results are what they are, and especially in a game of baseball, like, it's a game of failure. So don't let that become who you are, and just continue to work and love the game.
Yeah, love and appreciation, right? Gratitude for the game and for those types of things can be such a powerful tool, right? Just to give us perspective and to not necessarily throw us off from the direction that we're trying to follow, right? So yeah, that's very insightful take. Thank you for that. Casey, building off that question, a lot of players in our minor league system can still be considered young athletes. Can you describe some of the pressures on players coming up through the minor league system and speak to how you have handled those pressures?
I'd say the biggest pressure young athletes have in the minor leagues is just the pressure to perform and do well, because that's what everyone thinks gets you to the big leagues, is hitting 300 or having a sub-3 ERA or throwing 100 or hitting a certain exit velo. The ability to perform is a big pressure that I feel like a lot of guys have, and I have for sure. But one thing that helps me with it is talking with pitching coaches, teammates, and the reassurance of, like, hey, like, you're here for a reason. You can go and have a bad outing, and you get to go do it again the next day or the next week. And so just taking kind of some of that pressure off for performing, and just relaxing and enjoying the game that you have in front of you and enjoying the moment that you're in. Because I think that's a lot of things guys forget in what this opportunity is it's a blessing to have this opportunity, and the ability to perform is harder when you're always thinking about stats and what goes on the back of your, like, player card, because that's what everyone looks at. And so they kind of look at it as a defining tool instead of just like, it is what it is, and if you're not going to perform well, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's so many more things outside of baseball that goes on in our lives, but it just feels like it's everything when it's actually not.
Yeah, that's a great take, right? I mean, leaning into those supports, like you're saying, right? Having that communication with coaching staff can be really helpful, as well as, again, keeping things in perspective, being grateful for the opportunity. That can certainly be, again, powerful. Thank you for that, Casey. Dina, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, too, about how, it's a conversation I think that we have a lot about, the sport not becoming the identity, right? And making sure that one is sort of considering about the other aspects of the identity and sort of, getting in touch with those things. And sometimes it's learning about that over time too, right? So, Greg, this next question is for you. In addition to young athletes that we have in the audience, I suspect that there are also coaches here as well. So do you have any words of advice, wisdom about, coaches taking care of their own mental health and well-being?
Absolutely, but I want to touch on Casey said he hadn't hit in a while, but he did make it a point to show me a video of him hitting a home run a couple weeks ago. He said, just in case you need somebody, and he showed me the video. Keep pitching.
I thought it was a good swing.
I thought it was a pretty good swing too.
Optimism, Greg. Optimism.
If you guys don't know, both these guys are very good, very, very good at what they do. So the biggest thing I wrote down for this question is it's really easy as a coach or a manager to kind of forget about yourself and put everything that you have into the team or the guys you have or the daily schedule or, everybody around you, which is good. And I think that's the right way to be, especially in a leadership role, but you can't forget about the little things that go into like your daily schedule and making sure you're taking care of yourself because it's really easy for like your own habits to kind of go sideways if you're not really focusing on what you're doing. And as much as you want to give everything you can and make sure everybody else is okay and you're doing right by them, but if you're not essentially the best version of yourself, then that's going to be hard to do at times because you're either one, not doing right by yourself and your body and how you're feeling physically and that kind of stuff. But it's also, too, if you're going to, preach something or you're going to expect something out of your group and you're not following that on your own terms, it's kind of hard for them to get buy-in. So that was really the first thing I wrote was you just want to be the best version of yourself, so don't forget about yourself and all the little things that go into taking care of your own routines, your body, your mind and everything that goes into that. And pertaining to the game of baseball itself, it's kind of easy to fall into bad habits. There's, if you kind of look at the game as a whole, there's different things that just aren't good for yourself. And so it's just making sure you're staying on a more straight and narrow and not falling into some of the traps of just kind of the history of the game and different ways that it can take you. And understanding that, especially like when we preach to these guys, as much as it's we're going to practice every day, these guys got to throw bullpens, they got to take care of their stuff, in the weight room. It's also like, hey, you got to take care of your body off the field and take care of your mind. And obviously we have our whole mental health department, but we also have a mental performance department and we have a whole nutrition department and strength and conditioning. So all these different things outside of just what you guys see on the field that it really goes into the total package of trying to get the best out of everybody. But the same thing as a coach and is taking advantage of those things and just creating positive routines and getting away from bad habits so that you can just make sure you're practicing what you're preaching and you're taking the best care of yourself possible.
Thank you. Yeah, so that importance of keeping at the front of mind, even despite, I think, the day-to-day of you're a role model and modeling good behaviors for young athletes. So thanks. Antonio.
Yeah, so Ethan, this next question is for you. Dating back to college and even high school, how has the culture of mental health changed in the locker room since you began your baseball career?
Yeah, so for me personally, I didn't really struggle much with the mental health side of things early on, especially high school times, and I didn't understand it either. Like my sister, I have an older sister, and she competed in swimming, and she would just get turned upside down before her meets. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's the deal? It's not that hard. You know what I'm saying? And then I get into college, and all of a sudden, I was only pitching at this time, and my outings, I start to not feel great before my outings. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why do I feel terrible before I get on the mound? It's awful. And then, in college, you don't have the resources that you do in professional baseball. And so there's no, mental wellness isn't taken as seriously there as it is here, And so my dad was my guy for that. And so I'd ask him, and I'm like, dude, what is going on with me? And he's like, you want me to lay it out straight to you? He's like, you have anxiety. You're getting anxious before the games. And he's like, you remember all the times you made fun of your sister for that? Like that came back around on you, man. So, but yeah, like that's when it really clicked for me as I need to not only accept for myself that like it's a thing. It's not a problem. It's a thing. And it's something that you learn to deal with and that you can take care of yourself in certain aspects of things. And so in college, yeah, you don't really have the resource, but you lean on the people who you trust and lean on the people that can help you. And then, once I got to the Phillies, they were huge in letting you know that the resource was there, like that it's there for you when you need it. And so for me, especially with you and I have had a lot of great conversations, and no matter what it is in my life, like on the field, off the field, family, anything going on, y'all let us know that y'all are available at any time, at any day to talk when we need to talk, get off our chest what we need to get off, and that, sometimes, there's some things that I may be able to tell you that I don't want him to find out about, your manager, So, and y'all offer those things that I can get some things off my chest to y'all that maybe you don't want to talk to the macho bros about, like some things that, I want to work out, but you don't know how your friends are going to take it. So you have a resource to be able to talk about those things and get them off your chest and work through them. And y'all give us the resources in order to, whether it's, we've talked about breathing exercises about certain things or just mental preparedness for everything. And you give us the resources and the tools to build up our toolbox in order to attack these things. And, they're always going to be there, but at least we can deal with them better and be prepared to attack whatever situation we have that day, playing, living, anything, So, yeah.
Those are pretty sharp insights, right? I mean, like you were saying, we can experience stress, nervousness, and it can come and go, right? None of us are exempt from experiencing that throughout our lifetime. But yeah, I think that support can go a really long way. And as for Dina and I, we're thrilled, to be here and to be of service in whatever way we can be, so.
And, another thing I love about it is that, I hear that these conversations are happening more in the clubhouse so that people aren't feeling so alone with it, right? Because these feelings are very natural and normal. So, yeah. So this next question is for you, Casey. I know Ethan just mentioned recently that baseball is often called a game of failure, and it takes truly a great teammate to step up when someone is struggling. Can you share a time when a teammate went above and beyond to support you or someone else on the team during a difficult moment?
I don't have anyone specific because every one of my teammates does a really good job in general. It's a game of failure. We all fail. We're all going to fail at baseball at some point. No one's perfect. No one's batting 1,000. No one has a 0 ERA. Everyone fails. So just knowing that you're not alone and that failure can go a long way. I had an outing not too recently where it was one of my worst outings. And Ethan was my roommate. He also had a rough outing that night. And so that.
So did I that night.
And so we went home, we got to vent about it, talk about it, and joke about it, and many other things about that, and knowing that, like, I'm not the only one that's going to go through this. My teammates are going to go through this, and it sucks. But it just knowing that everyone's going to go through it kind of helps and kind of can deal with it and know that there's going to be another one. And just kind of flush it, go to the next one, and support from everybody pretty much.
Yeah. So normalizing, again, the conversation. And I know that Antonio and I have this conversation with folks all the time, which is like, how do you flip that pancake? How do you be a goldfish, right? Like, how do you just have a short memory so that, right, you could just sort of be consistent all the time. So thanks. Antonio, this next question is for you. So can you share with our fans here, our audience, about some of the mental health initiatives that we've introduced here to the Phillies organization, in terms of encouraging folks to get help and also helping to destigmatize mental health challenges?
Yeah, of course. So I should probably start with mentioning, that Dina here, she started before I did, and she's done an outstanding job at creating a really robust, really strong department altogether. With having said that, a really big part of what we've been focusing on that has been really working so far has been we've incorporated screening tools, at the very beginning of the season. And then this allows both us and players to maybe get a better understanding of potential pieces that may be happening before they become, let's say, pretty heavy and they become, let's say, more interfering to daily functioning or performance. So that's a big one that we've incorporated. Aside from that, before the regular season and usually during spring training, we'll be doing some presentations. And we'll be having conversations with every single player, every single team across the organization, just essentially kind of bringing the message of mental health being just as important as physical health. That has helped really not only destigmatize and normalize these types of conversations, but it's also really allowed us to get a really good grip on potential things that may be causing some distress, but that aren't necessarily bubbling all the way to the surface without them necessarily having to get there at that point. And then one of the other really big pieces that we sort of operate from is we operate from a proactive support model. So essentially what this really allows us to do, again, from a proactive perspective, is being able to be there for our players in a rather let's say, consistent way. Both Dina and myself have the opportunity to travel a lot, so we'll essentially try and provide services to 8 different teams, from the DR Academy team all the way to the Major League team. So yeah, we're essentially there. That essentially entails that we provide continuity of care. We maintain relationships through our travel and also through our capacity to, let's say, further relationships and further rapport as time progresses with each player. So yeah, those are, I think, a couple of my favorites at least. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Antonio. Yeah, I think, when I think about this population, and I used to sort of focus my work with college students, but I think one of the things in terms of this proactive support model is that, and I know that there are some mental health clinicians in the audience too, that you're accustomed to kind of sitting in your office and waiting for people to call. And I think with athletes especially, when we say proactive support, you need to be present and be more out there than just waiting for somebody to call you. That you have to check in on people. How are you doing? How's it going? How's the family? And that's what Antonio and I try to do, is just be more present and be more active.
Can I add something on that? So, to kind of the first question, that you had asked about, if you're a manager or coach, or if you do have personnel or resources available for the players, I think one thing that's really helped and that I'll continue to do is if you don't make it as something that's separated from these guys' daily routines and part of what they do, and you make it something that's included in that, then they'll be more open and more apt to go see anybody in that department, whatever it might be. But so when Dina comes into town, or Antonio, and inviting them out for batting practice or having them on the field, or they're as much of a coach or a resource as any of us would be. And I know over the years in the past it had been kind of like you said, where they're just in an office somewhere, and it's it's almost like you're doing something wrong if you're going to seek help. We're changing that whole narrative of hey, everybody here is pulling on the same rope and available. And I think that as a coach or a manager is something that if you do have somebody in that department, just bringing them out and having them being a part of the daily routine is makes it easier on the players to go see them.
Thank you so much, Greg. Antonio, so I just want to say how grateful I am to you. One of the things that you've done so well is to develop great rapport with our Latin players. And so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to, what you found to be particularly effective with helping to decrease stigma amongst our Latin players and, again, promote help seeking in that population.
So, yeah, that's a really good question. I think part of this whole thing has been a significant team effort, so like Greg was just mentioning, right, having the coaches buy-in into all of this, right? It's quite cool to be able to be a clinician, but also to go and watch batting practice or watching a live BP, things of that sort, right? It certainly keeps things very fresh and entertaining, but it also, gives us the opportunity to be present, and none of that would be possible without your guys' support. So with that said, I think a big part of that has worked with Latin players has been being really patient, number one. Other parts, that are important in there are showing interest. And I think that, we try to do that with every single player across the board, but showing interest not just necessarily in the athlete, but in everything that they are in their whole identity, so many of us can sometimes get really caught up in, okay, well, maybe I'm this type of worker, or maybe I'm, perhaps I have a role as a dad or something else, right? So we try to really see people and our players, especially in coaches, as a, let's say, a combination of so many different parts. And I think that with time, with presence, with consistency, that has really yielded great results. Right, so it goes back to the same principles, right? Of being there, of showing care, of checking in, right? That proactive support piece. Just kind of, saying, hey, how's everything going? Tell me a little bit more about your family. Not so much necessarily about what your ERA is right now or what your batting percentage is. Even though yes, performance-wise, that would be super important, and it does to some degree interact with mental health. That's not necessarily the whole piece of the whole pie. It's only a piece of it, right? So showing interest in these guys beyond that, and just being really aware of their overall well-being, that's been, I think, a really significant difference maker. Yes.
And I think could be sort of recognized as such a relief, right, to be asked about these other important aspects of their identities. So thanks, Antonio. Greg, what are some mental skills or self-care habits that you have found helpful for players or for you personally?
The biggest thing, so a little bit about kind of my story, and when you talk about the mental health side of the game and everything, and this has kind of come to affect me, I'd say, later in life, and that's one thing that I think we kind of touched on a little bit with Ethan, but it's the initial reaction to it's kind of like denial, like, hey, like I felt a certain way my entire life, and so like what's going on, like there's nothing really wrong with me, or like what's happening to me. And the best thing I could have done was like find help for it, right? So like when we talk about ways to kind of take care of it, was like go talk to somebody. I know that's not always easy, and at the beginning you might just keep telling yourself a certain thing, but there's so many resources, not even just in our game, but in life and in general, people that are available to talk about these things. And taking that first step of just going to talk to somebody, even if you feel like you don't want to, was probably the best thing that helped me out in terms of turning around some of the things that I was feeling, and taking better care of yourself and doing things that are going to promote like just quality health in yourself usually helps with your mental health. So that was part of the whole ritual. But like I've talked a bunch with Dina, and there's so many different types of breathing techniques that can just really help relax your body, that you can really work into your day, that don't take up a ton of time, that kind of just set you up for success the rest of the day. There's different like a pros and cons list. So when you do run into an anxious situation or a situation that may cause some heightened anxiety, of like how to combat it without it getting out of hand and causing any type of like panicky type situation, or things that might make it a lot worse. And so there's so much of it that's preventative. The mind's going to do what it's going to do, and you can control it as much as you want, but having these different things in place to kind of ease your mind, ease your body. And I haven't actually executed on it yet, but the guided like muscle relaxation techniques. There's a bunch of different things. A lot of obviously I get from Dina, but you can, if you search on YouTube in different places, where having almost just like a toolbox to be able to handle any of these situations that may come up have really helped me out, because and that just eases your mind in general that you can handle really anything that comes your way. But when you're not equipped with this stuff, just like if you're not prepared for a game or anything like that, it can make it tough to go out there and play. It's the same thing. Like the more I became equipped with all these different techniques to just help yourself feel better, the better I've been off for it.
Thank you so much, Greg. Yeah. It gets me thinking a little bit about how, we probably know when we go to the gym that there are certain things we need to do and muscles we need to train. But I don't think we necessarily learn about the different trainings that we could be doing mentally and the toolboxes that we can build. And that's what we try to emphasize with our players and our coaches. So now before we let our panel depart, we want to ask one final question to sum everything up that we've talked about this evening. And this can also double as a call to action. How can we as a community spread awareness of the importance of mental health? Antonio, we'll start with you, then to Ethan, then Casey, and then end with Greg.
I think a big part of the whole conversation here has to do with understanding that mental health is health. We're so used to whenever there's something physical that may be a little bit off with us, we tend to be very okay with going to the doctor. Mental health is no different. It's actually at the core, at the very center of everything that we do. Mental health really is within everything that we do. It's how we take care of ourselves. It's how we choose to pursue our goals. It's what our overall outlook on life is. It's our drive, our motivation, how we interact with other people. It's literally everything. So I think a big piece in here to keep in mind is life can be highly distracting. There's so many different pieces in there. So, normalizing, I think a big part that not only can life be challenging, and we all experience that as human beings, but that, asking for help or seeking support is more a sign of, I think, courage and a sign of investment in ourselves and wanting to be the best version, perhaps, that we can possibly be within ourselves. So I think that's a big piece that really resonates for me.
Thank you. Ethan?
Yeah, so kind of like what he said, especially the Phillies organization does a great job with this. And, not only can I talk to y'all, but I can also talk to my friends in the clubhouse. I can talk to my manager. I can talk to whoever. And I think the Phillies do a great job of, you shouldn't feel bad about having to ask for help or whatever goes on. And that, there's no problem with feeling a certain way because you can't help it because your body, it happens and you just need to learn how to deal with it. And that's the only way. And just seeking help and getting help, there's a reason that there's a degree for it, and there's a reason why y'all know about it, and that's to help us and for us to fix it, and not fix it, but be able to deal with it and work with it and get better with dealing with things. And it's not as taboo as it used to. If there's a problem, you go seek help, and there's no reason to feel bad about yourself or to feel sorry for asking for help. There's nothing wrong. It's the same as, like you said, physical health is mental health. And I think especially the Phillies organization does a great job, but I think it's kind of turning around in the world to be able to ask for help, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're only making yourself better. So,
thank you. Casey?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but just being able to talk about it and being open to talk about it is the biggest thing that has helped me for sure. The first time I talked to a therapist was Antonio last year, and that was one of the scariest things I did was I just had tremendous anxiety. I didn't know how to deal with it. I was praying, talking to my family, talking to my wife, and none of it was really working, and I was impatient. I couldn't find a way to deal with it, and they were like, you need to go talk to somebody. And so when I finally was open to it and finally did it, that's when I was able to a lot of that pressure and stress was alleviated. Being able to talk to him and knowing that it's not some big thing. It's everyone goes through it, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. I feel like it's not as big a deal as what it is. And it's not something to be scared of or worried about or something you feel like you have to hide. It's very present in everybody, and I don't think it's something we should shy away from, but kind of like attack almost. And just continue to build your toolbox and be open to talking about it to anybody and everybody.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are all really well answered, but I think the biggest thing is just be kind to yourself and give yourself grace. I know one of the things we talk about a lot is being tough on yourself on why things happen, and trying to tell yourself, hey, this shouldn't happen to me, or it shouldn't, that like, why is this type happening? But just give yourself grace, understand that everybody goes through it. I think where a lot of times when you think you're alone, you're not, and being able to get out there and talk to as many people as possible and seeking help, I think you used a really good word, just like normalizing the whole thing. It's nothing that should be a secret. It's not anything that should be kept to yourself. And, the longer that usually happens, the worse it usually gets. So just being open and available about it, and just being really, really kind to yourself, and not being too hard on yourself, because everybody's going through something. And but you also, there's a lot of good people out there that can help.
So I don't know if TJ does this on purpose, but I am always sort of filled with awe and gratitude at this last question, because just the messages that they're sending and their openness and willingness to just share these messages with you, but also right on the podcast and everything, it just sort of fills my heart with joy. So can we get a round of applause for our panelists, please? And a round of applause for you guys, too. And a round of applause for all the people that make this happen, including TJ Farrell.
Boy,
Thank you,
TJ.
TJ. And so we'll end the program with a Go Phillies. Go Phillies. Enjoy the game, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much.